Have you ever wondered what it'd be like if Bethesda Game Studios made Mass Effect? Well, we need no longer wonder because Starfield is here. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably read the thumbnail, so let me just get one thing out of the way. In my opinion, Starfield is not a bad game. That's not what I'm here to say. In fact, it's actually a good game, but to me, it does come up just short of being a truly great game. So what I'm gonna do here in this video is talk about Starfield and wherever my mind takes me in regard to this game, so you'll probably get a sense of what's good about it, what's bad about it, and just some indifferent facts about it. And regardless of how you come out of the other side feeling about the game, hopefully you'll have enjoyed our little chat. Don't forget to like the vid if you do end up enjoying, maybe even subscribe, but even if you don't, thanks for giving me a shot. Alright. Let's talk about Starfield. So I know this is an obvious thing to say, but Starfield is an enormous game. At the time of this recording, I've played 28 hours, and in that time, I did a good hearty chunk of side stuff and completed the main quest line. And yet, there is still an outlandish amount of game to be played. Now, the sheer enormity of Starfield works in its favor mostly. After all, this is what we want from big Bethesda-style RPGs. We want a hell of a lot of game to play. Well, trust me, it's there. And Starfield starts up and opens up to you relatively quickly when you consider the slower, more drawn-out openings typical of games of this ilk and lots of RPGs in general. And about an hour to an hour and a half in, you're kinda handed free reign and will quickly have a pretty sizable assortment of side activities. And I'd say this quicker intro pace that kinda lets the game get rolling faster than expected is a noteworthy choice that pays off well. Gathering up all these activities before you've even left the first main planet really sets the stage for the size of what's to come. However, where the gigantic expanse of the game kind of comes back to bite it is in the authorship area. And authorship is one of the bigger things I think this game is missing. What I mean is, Starfield doesn't always feel like it was handcrafted or like it's been painstakingly slaved over in order to make sure this world really felt like a world. In fact, most of the time, it feels like the opposite. Like the world, the people, everything they say, everything they do, every landscape, every building and spaceship is only there because they made a video game quest that requires it. Like, it seems clear that Bethesda was gonna make this game. A game that played like this, moved like this, was this size, and dished out quests like this. But as for the setting, they probably would have done anything and just forced it to fit the game they already knew that they were gonna make. Almost like they picked the setting and tone and world out of a hat. And that's not to say that there's no good side quests or worthwhile characters, but most of it doesn't feel specific to this particular world, and as a result, I find the Starfield universe quite uninteresting most of the time. Now again, just because everything feels a bit non-specific doesn't mean that nothing's fun or entertaining. There is a lot of fun to be had and a lot of ways to have it, and it's never more fun than when you're just letting yourself be distracted by every little thing, or really exploring in the spirit of the game, I suppose. Every time you so much as walk by someone, they can say something that ends up adding a new side quest to your logbook. And as the player, letting yourself constantly wonder, what's the deal with that thing? What's that guy up to? What's she mad about? Feels like it always pays off in terms of actually turning out to be a side quest, even if it's a short one. And I find the persuasion and dialogue options versus the always attack option versus the somewhere in between option to always be gratifying no matter how you play it. Because there's something about getting through something in a specific way that you found cool and knowing you didn't actually have to do it like that, but you did because it was what you wanted to do. It gives you that real sense of choice. Personally, I put a lot of points into my character's social skills like persuasion, negotiation, and diplomacy, so I pretty much talked and bribed my way through a ton of this. No spoilers, but I even persuaded my way through the final encounter of the game, which felt great. It's that kind of meaningful sense of choice that makes you want to start to get other skills and do things things differently to see how they play out. And ultimately, eventually just get everything and have all of those choices at your disposal. And that combination of choice and sheer wealth of content is an easy rabbit hole to fall down, even if the lore and universe aren't particularly gripping. You almost get fun drunk off your own choices, and then you run into a problem that could have been avoided or made easier had you spent your points another way, and then you say, okay, I'm not gonna be persuasion guy, I'm gonna be lockpick pickpocket man. And then you run into a different problem and you wanna be the space pilot guy, and then there's a different problem and you wanna be cooking guy whose inventory is full of OP food items. And that loop of having you obsess over your own choices is the crux of where all the goodness lies in Starfield. Again, alongside the absolute mass of it. However, it is possible for the game to drop the loop and instead lull you to sleep, because unfortunately, there is more than a healthy amount of tedium in Starfield. For one, this game has a reward and loot issue. A lot of stuff can come off feeling like a waste of time or not fully worth it, because the reward you get, in my experience, is often not worth jack shit. And enemies also rarely ever drop anything worth a second glance. So you're not getting rewarded with good weapons or gear via quests, and enemies don't drop a lot of good shit. So where do you get good shit? Well, I don't fucking know. I never really had too much good stuff. I'm like the opposite of AM PM. Not to mention, I couldn't really loot all too much most of the time because I was basically always over my weight limit. Yes, the horrible over encumbrance mechanic is still a thing, albeit a little different. And the amount of stuff you can carry is laughable, even when you increase your capacity. I was building outposts and mineral containers and transfer containers and whatnot just to hold all my shit. It was pretty annoying. So yeah, there's like nothing good to loot 90% of the time in terms of weapons and gear. And if there is, you probably can't fucking carry it because you can't fucking carry anything without dropping everything or constantly being out of oxygen. At some point, I decided since the game won't give me anything, I'm just gonna craft and mod my own weapons myself to make them good. But turns out you've got to put points into your research ability. Then you have to research a weapon mod to unlock other research. Then you've got to put points into weapon modding. Then you've got to put more points into research. And guess what? I hadn't been putting points into any of that. Also, it's not just a matter of dumping attribute points. You have to actively use a skill to be able to invest more points. So all this was gonna take time, which would have been fine had I known that this was the only way to get beefy guns in the whole game from the beginning. Also, you need a bunch of resources for the mods and research too. And Lord have mercy on your soul if you go out to a planet and try to collect resources. You'll be over encumbered in no time, my friend. Also, where's all the fucking ammo in this game? I took to just using shotguns because everything else runs out of ammo so fucking fast, and every vendor in the game has a set amount of ammunition you can buy. They aren't just all clones of a shared universal storefront with infinite resources. So if you really want to stock up on ammo for guns, you've got to go from planet to planet to planet to planet buying ammo. So yeah, I just went with shotguns. It seemed like the only way to not get caught up in the tedious ammo collectathon. And going from planet to planet brings me to a disappointing part of Starfield, which is the load times. Boy oh boy, will this game load. You're gonna be hanging out a lot at load screens, and they aren't particularly short either. Just a tad disappointing in the modern era, and very annoying when I have to keep going from planet to planet. And lastly, the ship combat is pretty good in comparison to aerial dogfighting in games, or other games that have space combat. But even the best aerial combat in gaming doesn't make for a good game. What I'm saying is aerial combat is a fundamentally sort of unfun combat style in games. And so you can do it as well as humanly possible, and it's never very good. As evidenced by the fact that Star Wars Squadrons absolutely nailed sci-fi space combat as hard as you can fucking nail it, and the game was still trash. Starfield even seems to have taken some inspiration from Star Wars Squadrons, which is a good call if you're gonna do space combat, but you know, you could just not do space combat, or at least make it less frequent and more of a quick mini game like, oh, oh, there's some space pirates. I just mindlessly blast them to death. You know, just some quick bite dumb fun would have served the game better than trying to flesh out something that really just doesn't work on a fundamental level. I mean, I don't even know how Starfield decides when an enemy ship hits you and when they miss. It just seems like luck. But whatever, maybe it would have been better if I dumped all my time and resources into bolstering my ship, I don't know. Anyway, in conclusion, I think that Starfield is a fun, expansive game that lends itself well to the notion of having nothing better to do. Mostly because at the heart of it, it has a weird balancing act of going from deliciously addictive to painfully boring or vice versa on a whim. If I had to put a number on it, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10. Can't say I'm not a little disappointed in what I expected would be at least an undoubtedly great game, but 2023 has provided me with so much that I'll settle for a good game here. So okay, that's all from me. Let me know what you guys think, if you've played Starfield, or if you're gonna, or if you're not gonna, based on something I said. Just whatever you have to say, go ahead and say it. Throw it in the comments. Tell me how stupid and wrong I am, of course. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing if you did. But until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I'll probably play more Starfield at some point. Goodbye.